in and took the reins. As we jolted out of the clearing, Jacob reached down to untie my ankles. "Turn around and let me do your hands," he said. I will confess it, I felt a wash of relief. They didn't intend to kill me tonight. Without any warning, a stiff breeze swept over us, along with a spatter of oversized raindrops. The breeze died for a moment, then the rain was on us, lashing us with windy sheets of water. I noticed that Doc's wet white robe had become translucent, so I could read his name stitched on the pharmacist's jacket he wore underneath. "What do you think, Ben?" Jacob asked as the wagon wheels slogged through the mud. "Is the Klan making a little more sense to you now?" If Jacob hadn't been a friend my whole life, I would have punched him right then. "Listen to yourself, Jacob. You just killed a man. Do you hear me? You killed him." I thought he was going to snap back at me, but the fire suddenly died in his eyes. He shook his head. In sorrow or disgust, he stared down at his calloused hands. "You will never understand," he said. "I'm a fool to even try. You're not like us anymore. You don't understand how things have changed." "Let me tell you what else I don't understand," I said. "How you, the one I always thought was my friend, how could you do this to me, Jacob? Jacob, I was your friend." "I did it to help you," he said. "To keep you alive." His voice was weak, pathetic. The rain was beginning to slacken. The wagon slowed to a stop outside Scully's barn, where the evening's festivities had begun. "Come on, Ben," Jacob said in a low voice. "Let's go home." "I don't think so." I turned away and set off walking in the direction of Eudora. "Where the hell you going?" he called after me. I didn't answer or even look back. Chapter 81. A silk banner with elegant black letters ran the length of the wall. "Welcome home, Ben." This was the banner that had hung in the dining room for the big family celebration the day I returned from my service in Cuba. Half the town turned out to cheer the decorated Spanish-American war veteran who had distinguished himself under the famous Colonel Theodore Roosevelt. Now the banner was dingy, the silk stained brown with drips from the leaky roof. I was standing not in my father's house on Holly Street, but in the long house out back, a former slave quarters. It was to the long house that I had come after I left Jacob. It hadn't housed an actual slave since well before I was born. At the moment, it seemed to be serving as a storage room for every piece of cast-off junk my father didn't want in the house. It was also home to the dogs, Duke and Dutchy, the oldest, fattest, laziest bloodhounds in all of Mississippi. They didn't even bother to bark when I opened the door and stepped inside. I lit a kerosene lantern and watched the mice scurry away into corners. As the shadows retreated, I realized that all the junk piled in here was my junk. My father had turned the longhouse into a repository of everything related to my childhood. The oak desk from my bedroom was shoved against the wall under the welcome banner. Piled on top of the desk were pasteboard cartons and the little desk chair I had used before I was old enough to use a grown-up one. I lifted the lid of the topmost carton. A musty smell rose from the books inside. I lifted out a handful. A boy's history of the Old South, my first lessons in arithmetic, and my favorite book when I was a boy, Brass Knuckles, or The Story of a Boy Who Cheated. Next to the desk stood my first bed, a narrow spool one decorated by my mother with hand-painted stars. It was hard to believe I had ever fit on that little bed. In the far corner was another pile of Benjamin Corbett's effects: football, basketball, catcher's mitt, slide trombone. the boxer's speed bag that once hung from a rafter in the attic. I lifted the corner of a bedsheet draping a large object and uncovered the most wonderful possession of my entire childhood, a miniature two-seater buggy, made perfectly to scale of white-painted wicker with spoked iron wheels. I remembered the thrill it gave me when our old stable hand, Mose, would hitch up the old mule, Sarah, to my buggy. He would lift me onto the driver's seat and lead the mule and me on a walk around the property. I must have been all of 6 or 7. Before I knew what was happening, I was crying. I stood in the middle of that dark, musty room and let the tears come. My shoulders shook violently. I sank down to a chair and buried my head in my hands. I was finally home, and it was awful. Chapter 82. A familiar voice brought me out of a deep sleep. These days I came awake instantly, and always with an edge of fear. It was only when I blinked at the 2 figures smiling down on me that I was able to relax. "Near about time for breakfast," said Yavella, my father's cook. Beside her was Dabney, the houseman. Each held a silver tray. "Way past time," said Dabney. "In another hour it'll be time for dinner." Among the items on Dabney's tray were a silver coffee pot emitting a tendril of steam from its spout and a complete place setting of Mama's best china. Yavella's tray offered just about every breakfast item known to southern mankind: grits, fried eggs, spicy link sausage, homemade patty sausage, griddle cakes with sorghum syrup, a basket of baking powder biscuits, butter, watermelon pickles, and fig preserves. "Yavella, you don't expect me to eat all this?" "Yes, sir, I sure do," she said. "You too damn skinny." "I have lost some weight here recently," I said and rolled my eyes. "Yeah, I heard all about it," she said. "How'd you all know I was here, in the guest quarters?" "Duke come and told me," Dabney said. I realized that I was standing in front of them, shirtless, wearing only my drawers. I looked around for my clothes. "Don't you worry about it, Mr. Ben," Yavella said. "I seen plenty worse than that. I took your clothes to the wash." Dabney brought over a filigreed iron tea table I remembered from Mama's flower garden. "I didn't tell your daddy you's here," he said. "I figured you'd want to tell him yourself. But why don't you come on and sleep in the house, Mr. Ben? That big old house just rattling around with hardly nobody in it. You out here sleeping with the dogs." "We'll see," I said. "Thank you for the invitation." Along with the coffee, Dabney had brought me a straight razor, shaving soap, a tortoiseshell comb and brush, and a stack of fresh clothing. My old clothes, laundered and folded. I was probably skinny enough to fit into them now. "God bless you both," I said. "You the one that needs the blessing, from what I hear," Yavella said. "You best keep out of trouble." "I will try," I said. "Listen, I have a favor to ask both y'all." "Your father don't need to know, and we ain't gonna tell him," said Dabney. "The same goes for me," said Yavella. "And now I got a favor of you." "What is it?" "Would you eat them damn biscuits before they get cold?" Chapter 83. As soon as I poured the last of the coffee, Duke and Dutchie started barking, insistent, urging, annoying barks. They ran up and down along the wall underneath the cobwebby window. I went over and was astonished to see Elizabeth in the bushes, and with her none other than L.J. Stringer. I motioned for them to go around to the front door. "Damn, Ben," L.J. said. If we wanted to come through the front door, we would have done it in the first place. I shut the door behind them. How'd you even know I was here? They looked annoyed at my stupidity. Don't you think those Klan boys had somebody follow you home last night after their meeting? The whole town knows, Ben. Everybody knows who you are and where you are, all the time. I felt stupid. Of course they had followed me. LJ straightened. Ben, let me put it to you as simply as I know how. Your life is in danger. He's right. Actually, it's a miracle you're still alive, said Elizabeth. She reached out and touched my shoulder, eyes wide with concern. LJ spoke in a no-nonsense voice. People are really angry, Ben. I mean angry. You forget what a small town this is. Folks know you're up to something, and whatever it is, you ain't here to make them look good. I don't have to defend myself, LJ. There's murder going on in this town. Hell, I've seen 6 people with my own eyes who've been murdered just in the short time since I got here. They nearly killed me just for seeing what I saw. Elizabeth spoke, her voice as gentle as LJ's was harsh. Ben, these are, or were, your neighbors, she said. These are your friends. Most of them are good, decent people. Elizabeth, I don't see anything decent about men who murder innocent people. You put neighborliness ahead of simple humanity? Forgive me if I disagree. I realized that I probably sounded like a defense attorney pleading a case. Another hopeless one. LJ seemed to read my mind. No point in discussing it any further, he said. We come here because we're afraid for you, Ben. We want to try to help. It's just a matter of time before they come for you again. And hang you good. I'll figure out some way to keep you safe. Thank you, LJ. Elizabeth, I really do appreciate your concern, more than you can possibly know. Until then, Ben, listen to me. Do not trust anyone, and that means anyone. I knew that anyone included Jacob Gill, and even my father. It probably meant Dabney and Yavella, too. But did it also mean the very people giving me this cautionary advice? Could I trust LJ and Elizabeth? We'd best be on our way, LJ said. Isn't there a back door out here? I pointed to it. Don't forget what I said, Ben. Keep your head down. LJ opened the little door that led onto the alley. He glanced around, then turned back. Nobody around. Let's go, Elizabeth. She turned to me with a smile that spoke of her concern. Ben, please let us help. We're your friends. Maybe your only friends. Chapter 84. Almost midnight, another knock came on the rear door of the longhouse. I shot the bolt and the door swung open. Moody Cross was standing there in a white jumper, and not a little terrified. She pushed past me and slammed the door shut. Pawpaw sent me. I guess my secret hiding place is the worst-kept secret in Mississippi, I said. She was out of breath. We need help. A lady from the slide-in sent her colored girl out to warn us. Said there's a group of men coming out to kill me and Pawpaw and Ricky. Who's Ricky? My cousin. You met him at the funeral. He got run out of Chattawa, where he lived all his life. He been staying with us since you left, like for protection. Now I remembered him, a boy about the same age as Hiram, with a family resemblance to Hiram and Moody. What happened in Chattawa? I asked. 2 white men said they saw Ricky staring at a white woman, said he was thinking evil thoughts. I guess some white folks can even see inside a black boy's brain. There's this group of them, the White Raiders is what they call them up there. They's supposed to be the ones coming to get us. This seemed like more than coincidence. The horror raining down upon Abraham's family simply would not stop,